Papa is brought to you by Just Some Podcast Media. Dun, da, da, da. The views on this podcast are those solely of the host and do not represent the views or opinions of any other institution.
Welcome to Nurse Papa, a podcast for parents from the heart and mind of a pediatric nurse and father. In each episode, I'll be taking a deep dive into a story of parenthood, and hopefully, come out on the other side with a greater understanding of what makes kids and their parents tick. At the conclusion of each episode, I'll tackle a parenting question from one of my loyal listeners, in a segment I like to call Dear Nurse Papa. Let's get started.
Hey Papa, what's your story about today?
Well, it's about you and your brother. But mostly about your brother.
Cool, Papa, but I need to go to the bathroom before you start the story.
What a coincidence. That's exactly what this story is about.
Can you help me, Papa?
Sweetie, can you wait for just 1 second?
Papa, I can't hold it.
Okay, let's go. Corona, the virus that potty-trained my son. Change is often hard. With children, it is inevitable, but never predictable. It is the expected fate of any modern father of young kids to deal with poop on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. Yet, before I had kids, I had no inkling of how many times I would view and clean my son's anus. Each diaper change is like a wrestling match with our boy. He fights, he screams, he twists, he rolls, he dares to yell, with the bold impunity that only a fearless toddler can muster. Changing his diaper is a physical act that requires two people, leaving us both sweaty and mentally broken. When we're done, I often feel like I might need to change my diaper as well. Even my 5-year-old, who has already graduated to a toilet, will not free me from her potty grasp. She'll often sit there for many minutes doing her deed, and she prefers to have company.
It gets lonely in there, Papa,
she tells me. Together, she and I sit in the bathroom, talking about deep things, or reading a book together, as she grunts it all out. By the nature of my profession, I cannot hope to escape this poop experience at work either. It is such a prominent part of the day of a pediatric nurse that I can't even be grossed out by it anymore. This did not stop me from hoping for a poop miracle for our son, though. My wife and I were tired of changing diapers. We were ready to move on to the next stage, whatever that happened to be. Before shelter in place became the new spring fad, we had just about given up on this dream. We had tried just about everything. We bribed him with stickers, and then upped the ante to jelly beans. When that failed, we promised a toy that he had long pleaded for, but even a shiny new excavator truck could not convince him to give up his diaper ways. Still, we soldiered on like the determined parents we were. We diligently checked in with him every hour he was awake, asking him if he needed to go. The answer was always, "No, Papa." He would stare right into my eyes with a smug smirk on his face, all the while dropping a giant turd into his underwear. As deflating as this behavior left me, I couldn't be mad. Accepting the potty into his life was clearly a developmental milestone he was not ready for. No bribe, beg, or burst of anger was going to change that. In the end, we both decided to stop fighting. It was clear that our obvious desire for our son to move on was actually causing him to rebel even harder. I tried to imagine what the process must have felt like for him. Just 3 months earlier, we had begun to wean his thumb sucking, and now we were upending his routine once again with another big change. He had been accustomed to a diaper since birth. Between his thumb and now his butt, we were turning his world upside down, and he was having none of it. Between our work obligations and his time in school, it felt impossible to enforce a consistent message anyway. Then, a pandemic happened. Just like the boy, our habitual routines were upended. A near constant together time at home became our new normal rather than the exception. We had no excuses. My wife and I lamented that if we could not figure this thing out now, we might need to seriously reevaluate our parenting, and also sign up for the compostable diaper service once again. 2 weeks, and a lot of poopy laundry later, we achieved a parenting victory which we could only have dreamed of beforehand. I was walking by one of the 2 small potties that sit in our home like Roman centurions, when I noticed something unexpected inside of one of them. Of course, what was sitting there like a gift from the Roman god of feces, whose actual name is Sterculius, was a perfectly formed swirl of poop. I was so excited that I started jumping up and down, screaming like a wild animal on acid. I felt like my son had just won the Nobel Prize, or invented something really cool which would change the world as we knew it. Forgetting the fact that he had been walking around for God knows how long with an unwiped butt, I picked him up in my arms and danced around the room like a pagan, celebrating the new moon. Even though my over-the-top behavior seemed to confuse him, he seemed happy for me all the same. My exultation must have inspired something deep inside of him too. Later that night, he actually requested to use the potty without any suggestion from either of us. What can we all learn from this strange story of a young boy's poop and my obsession with it? That patience is a virtue? That love and attention will conquer all. That you simply cannot force another person, especially a 3-year-old, to do something they are not ready to do. On some level, probably all of these things are true, and none of them as well. Often in parenthood, a particular confusion or problem with one's child seems fully insurmountable until, of course, it is not. Time is the great equalizer. There is no universal roadmap to raising kids. Trust me, I've looked for it, but only uncovered dusty old maps that I can't begin to use to navigate this part of my life as a dad. Even though literally billions of humans have walked the same beautiful and frustrating path, many of them leaving behind tales of their journeys, each child is different, and the wisdom of experts does not always apply. Often, I am so exasperated by my own parental ineffectiveness, I am unable to accept the rare advice that actually does work. For now, we'll count our blessings and consider our son's new toilet habits to be one of the many positive side effects of this strange time. Now, if only the coronavirus could get my 5-year-old daughter to practice her reading and writing without crying and complaining, that, my friends, would really be something special. This week's Dear Nurse Papa letter comes from an Oakland mom frustrated about her son's newfound defiance. Clean up or clear out. Dear Nurse Papa, it's very important to us that our 5-year-old boy participates in household chores such as cleaning up and clearing the table. We do not want to give bribes or treats for these tasks because we want him to view it as a normal part of being in our family. Until recently, we were feeling fairly smug because he was doing all of this excitedly without protesting. However, for the past few weeks, he has been refusing to help clean up his toys at the end of the evening, or help clear the table after dinner. We were hoping that if we didn't make a big deal out of it, he would forget his resistance and start joining in family cleanup again. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be happening. What do we do? Help us, please. Dish Mama. Dear Dish Mama, Nurse Papa knows exactly where you're coming from. I too often feel quite smug about most of my improvised parenting techniques, until my 2 kids disabuse me of my self-appointed genius. It happens daily without fail. Parenthood absolutely requires a certain amount of unproven assurance in our chosen methodologies. Don't feel bad that what you certainly thought would work did not. Even though it was ineffective, I think your initial muted reaction to your son's dish-clearing civil disobedience was sound. If parents reacted to every single twist and turn that their kids threw at them, they would simply be reacting all the time. And that is simply no way to live. It also would not work. I remember an evening a few years ago when I completely lost my temper with my little girl when she refused to comply with a series of what I thought were very simple bedtime requests. I screamed. She cried. I screamed some more. She stomped. We both retreated to our separate corners. After my daughter fell asleep in a pile of stuffed animals, I apologized to my wife for losing my cool. She surprised me by saying, "It's okay. I would have lost my patience too. Your problem is not that you got mad and screamed. It's that you had no game plan. You had no strategy. She won." My wife is a genius. Dish Mama, you also need some strategy to get your son to help with household chores. Kids are never going to want to do what we want them to do just because we want them to do it. You can try one or all of these following 3 steps. You either have to persuade him, trick him, or wait him out. Dealer's choice, girl. Persuade him. With some kids, explaining why you want them to do something is much more effective than bluntly forcing them to do it, or passively waiting until they decide to do it for themselves. If you clearly explain to your son that if he does not help to clean the dishes, then there will simply not be any more dishes left to eat on tomorrow night, he might feel persuaded to help you out of sheer desire for a clean eating surface.
Oh.
You can also explain to your son how you feel when he refuses to help out. Kids understand intimately what it feels like to need help. If you tell your son that you really need his help in a task, and that the only way it will get done is with his support, you will foster empathy. Empathy leads to understanding. Understanding can blunt the resistance of even the most stubborn child. You've already stated that you don't want to bribe your son to help out, and I respect that decision. I won't lie, bribing absolutely works, but it is a bull you can't walk backwards. If you bribe your child once, it is entirely possible that he or she will demand the same bribe or a commensurate one the next time. It is a tough line to walk and a cranky bull to take to pasture. I do not recommend it unless you have a sizable lollipop stash or simply don't give a shit. Trick him. Oh, Dish Mama, there are so many ways to trick your kids. It is a true joy to unlevel the playing field by wielding your superior intellect and vastly longer life experience. My wife loves to put a handful of spinach into the fruit smoothies she makes for our kids. It's not just because she is getting them to eat something green. She loves the facade, and the harmless deception too. It feels good to win sometimes, people. If God didn't want us to trick our kids every now and then she would not have blessed us with reverse psychology. The first way to trick your kid into doing something he would rather not do is to give him options. I understand that this move is not intuitive. Providing options seems like opening Pandora's box. But the reality is, kids will fall under the parent spell twice as often when you give them the choice to do just that. The trick is to offer a slightly less appealing option, like taking out the trash or changing his brother's diaper, and hope he picks the path of least resistance. I'm guessing your son would much rather clear the table than wipe his brother's ass, and the strange emergence of 2 choices will probably make him forget that he does not really have to do either. Trick him, Dish Mama. You've got this. The next awesome trick is to play dumb. Nurse Papa is an expert at this one because, well, he often doesn't have to fake it. Pretend to not know how to do the very thing which you want your son to do. Fumble like a clown as you clear the table. Pretend you don't remember where the sink is. Trip over your feet and fall to the ground like a clumsy mime. The pure novelty of his mom or dad being foolishly helpless with an otherwise normal task will make him giggle. It will also melt his glacier of kid defiance and encourage him to get involved. There's a reason that kids absolutely love clowns, and will basically do anything that they are told by one. Clowns are experts at inciting involvement and encouraging rapt attention in young people. If it were otherwise, why would half our nation listen to Donald Trump, our accidental clown president?
I'm really rich.
Any parent who's been to a 5-year-old's birthday party knows this to be true. Be a clown, Dish Mama. Your son will applaud you, and then he will follow you. My most favorite trick, though, is to make a game of it. Take that task which they hate and make it great. Kids are playful by nature. In order to become a master adult manipulator of your playful kids, you need to be playful too. From now on, it's not clearing the dishes and putting them in the sink. It is assisting your UFO armada to the nearby intergalactic space station, otherwise known as the sink. Make a fun story out of the task. Create a narrative. There are so many ways for kids to enjoy stories. Reading books with them is simply the most conventional way to do it. When I want to spend some time pulling weeds in the garden, I remind my 2 kids that there is an entire hidden community of invisible elves sleeping out there. I planted the seeds for this story months ago, and my kids still love it. They absolutely adore looking for the elves and discovering the clues to their existence. And Dish Mama, our backyard looks much better because of it. Dish Mama, I won't lie, none of these brilliant ideas are guaranteed to work. It may require a combination or tweak to any or all of them in order to accommodate your unique son. If none of them work though, your last resort is to wait the dude out. Kids are mercurial little beings. The moment you think you have them pegged, they change their tune and do something entirely different. Next week, your son may decide to start helping out with his chores simply because he decides it is the right time to do it. Ultimately, our kids will be exactly who they want to be, when they want to be it, and that is absolutely the way it should be. Hopefully for you, that way will soon involve clearing the damn dishes too. All my love to you and your dirty dishes. Nurse Papa. Are you a parent struggling to do best by your child? Is there a particular quandary of parenthood that has got your goat? If so, write to Nurse Papa. Send all your questions to david@nursepapathebook.com, and I just might feature your letter in my next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Nurse Papa. Remember, Nurse Papa is also an upcoming book about my experiences as a pediatric nurse and father. For more information, please visit nursepapathebook.com. Stay safe out there and keep on parenting.